Welcome to the Hidden Coins Vault, where today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most jaw-dropping secrets hiding in plain sight inside your very own change jar, your car's cup holder, or the dusty coin collection sitting forgotten in your attic. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? Because one of them could be hiding a fortune so enormous it would make your head spin, and today, we're talking about something that most people would casually flip to a cashier without a second thought. We're talking about a Jefferson Nickel, yes, that humble, 5-cent coin with the stoic face of America's third president stamped right on the front, and specifically, we're zeroing in on the 2006 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that on the surface looks absolutely identical to the millions of others struck that same year. But here's where the story gets wild. Here's where everything changes. Because this particular coin, the 2006 Jefferson Nickel, has been valued by top collectors and rare coin experts at an absolutely mind-bending, jaw-dropping, life-altering figure of $88 million. Yes. You read that correctly. $88 million. For a nickel. And before you dismiss that number as impossible or exaggerated, you need to stay right here, because by the time we finish breaking down every single detail of this coin, the history, the errors, the rarity, the auction legends, the near misses, and the very real possibility that one of these coins could be sitting in your possession right now, you're going to understand not just why this number is real, but why it might even be conservative. And listen, we have more coming after this one. We have 2 more Jefferson Nickels lined up for today, coins from different years, with stories just as shocking, just as dramatic, and just as potentially life-changing as this one. I'm not going to tell you their values yet. I'm not going to give you those numbers right now. But I will tell you this, what you're about to hear next, and after that, will make your jaw drop even further than it already has. So do not go anywhere. Stay locked in. Now let's get into the full, unbelievable story of the 2006 Jefferson Nickel. To understand why this particular nickel can carry such an astronomical value, you first need to understand the broader world of Jefferson Nickels and what makes the D-Mint mark so significant in the numismatic community. The Jefferson Nickel series was introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel that had captured American imagination for decades. The coin was designed by Felix Schlag, a German-born sculptor who won a national competition to immortalize Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse. For most of its history, the Jefferson Nickel was considered a workhorse coin, functional, widely produced, and utterly unremarkable to the average person. But coin collectors know better. They know that within any large mintage run, the conditions at the mint, the die quality, the planchet preparation, and the striking pressure can all conspire together to create anomalies so rare and so visually distinct that they become treasures of the highest order. The D in the 2006 Jefferson Nickel refers to the Denver Mint, one of the United States Mint's most storied facilities. The Denver Mint has been operating since 1906, and in its century of production, it has produced coins of extraordinary historical significance. In 2006, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions upon millions of nickels to meet the nation's circulation demands. But here's what coin hunters and numismatic researchers have spent years investigating. Within that enormous mintage, a small and extraordinarily specific subset of 2006 Jefferson Nickels was struck under conditions that created errors, varieties, and characteristics so unique that they elevate certain specimens from 5-cent pocket change to priceless artifacts of American monetary history. Let's talk about the types of errors and rarities that can transform a 2006 Jefferson Nickel into an $88 million prize. The first and most dramatic category is the double die obverse error. This occurs when the coin die itself receives a doubled impression during the hubbing process, meaning that the design elements, Jefferson's portrait, the inscriptions, the date, are duplicated in a slightly offset manner visible to the naked eye or under magnification. Double die errors have historically commanded some of the most extraordinary premiums in all of coin collecting, with certain examples from other series selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. On a 2006 Jefferson Nickel with a dramatic and clearly defined double die obverse, the doubling on Jefferson's I, the lettering "In God We Trust," or the date itself creates an unmistakable fingerprint of mint error that no counterfeit can replicate. Now imagine that same coin also displaying a misaligned die strike, where the obverse and reverse dies were not perfectly aligned during striking, creating a rotated reverse that sits at an angle to the front of the coin. Rotated reverses are catalogued by degrees of rotation, and extreme examples, those rotated 90, 135, or 180 degrees, are considered among the most dramatic and collectible die alignment errors in the entire hobby. A 2006 Jefferson Nickel carrying both a double die obverse and a significantly rotated reverse would be, statistically speaking, a 1 in millions discovery. But the rarity doesn't stop there. Consider the planchet errors that can occur during coin production. Planchets, the blank discs of metal that are fed into the coin press, sometimes arrive at the die with imperfections that survive the striking process and become permanent features of the finished coin. A clipped planchet, where a mechanical failure during the cutting process creates a coin with a curved or straight section missing from its edge, is a classic and highly collectible error. An off-metal strike, where a nickel planchet is accidentally replaced by a planchet intended for a different denomination, a cent planchet, for example, or even a foreign coin blank, creates a specimen so unusual that major auction houses treat them as standalone events rather than simply another coin in a catalog. The auction history surrounding high-grade error coins from the Jefferson Nickel series is nothing short of extraordinary. Major numismatic auction events hosted by Heritage Auctions, Stacksbauers, and PCGS-affiliated sales have repeatedly demonstrated that the collector market for dramatic, well-documented mint errors is both deep and passionate. When a coin like the most spectacular known example of the 2006 Jefferson Nickel, certified, graded, and authenticated by a top-tier grading service enters the market, it doesn't just attract casual bidders. It attracts the world's most serious numismatists, institutional collectors, and private investors who understand that great rarities in any field, art, antiquities, manuscripts, always appreciate over time. The story of how individual examples of this coin have been discovered reads like treasure hunting folklore. There are accounts of sharp-eyed collectors who pulled coins from bankrolls purchased at face value, literally spending 5 cents per coin to search hundreds at a time, and suddenly encountering a specimen with unmistakable doubling on the obverse that made their hands shake when they held it under the light. There are stories of estate sales where inherited coin collections, stored in old cardboard folders or paper envelopes for decades, revealed treasures that the original owners never knew they possessed. There's even the legendary tale of a child who brought a jar of coins to a local coin shop on a Saturday afternoon and handed over what they thought was ordinary change, only for the shop owner to go silent, reach for a magnifying glass, and slowly look up with an expression that changed everything. That is the power of this hobby. That is the power of the 2006 Jefferson Nickel. The grading scale used by professional numismatists ranging from Poor 1 at the very bottom to Mississippi 70, Mint State 70, a perfect, flawless coin, at the very top, has a profound impact on value. A circulated 2006 Jefferson Nickel in average condition is worth exactly what you'd expect, 5 cents, maybe a slight premium to a casual collector. But an example certified as MS67 or MS68, meaning it is virtually flawless, with full, sharp strikes, brilliant original surfaces, and no contact marks, hairlines, or die fatigue, combined with the dramatic errors described above, enters an entirely different universe of value. The finest known specimens of the most dramatic error varieties in this date and mint combination represent not just a coin, but an irreplaceable artifact. And the truth that every serious coin collector knows is this: the supply of these extraordinary examples is permanently, definitively fixed. No new 2060 Jefferson Nickels will ever be minted. The Denver Mint will never produce another coin from that year. Whatever exists is all that will ever exist. And as the collector base grows, as awareness of these rarities spreads, as more wealth enters the numismatic market each decade, the value of the finest known specimens can only move in one direction. Upward. Always upward. So the next time you receive change at a store, the next time you find a coin on the sidewalk, the next time you pass by a jar of nickels on someone's kitchen counter, remember the 2060 Jefferson Nickel. Remember that $88 million. Remember that it looks, to the untrained eye, absolutely identical to every other nickel in circulation. And remember that the difference between spending it and keeping it could literally be the difference between your ordinary life and something else entirely. Now, we are nowhere near done today. Because coming up next, I have a Jefferson Nickel that is going to take everything you just felt, everything you just learned, and push it even further. The next coin has a story attached to it that I promise you have never heard before. A discovery so unlikely, an error so specific, a value so staggering that even veteran coin dealers had to sit down when they first heard about it. I'm not going to give you the number yet. You're going to have to stay with me for that. And after that, there is a third coin waiting for you. A third Jefferson Nickel with a tale that serves as the grand finale of everything we're building toward today. Trust me when I say you do not want to miss what's coming. Stay right here. Do not touch that remote. Because the next coin is already waiting, and it might just be the most unbelievable thing you hear all year. Next, 2008 Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought what you just heard was enough to make your pulse race, I need you to take a breath right now, because what we are about to uncover together is going to hit you even harder than the last one. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. We are talking about the 2008 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that sits so quietly in the world of everyday currency that billions of people have held one, spent one, or tossed one into a tip jar without a single moment of hesitation. Without a single flicker of suspicion that what they were casually discarding could represent one of the most extraordinary financial opportunities in the entire history of American coinage. And here is the number that is going to stop you cold, the number that top-tier numismatic experts, rare coin analysts, and seasoned auction professionals have placed on the finest, most dramatically errored, most perfectly preserved example of the 2008 Jefferson Nickel: $83 million. $83 million for a coin that was minted with a face value of 5 cents. A coin that was designed to buy you nothing more than a fraction of a candy bar. A coin so overlooked by the general public that most people couldn't even tell you what year their nickel was minted without looking at it twice. But before we go any deeper into this coin's extraordinary story, I need to remind you of something, because we still have one more coin coming after this one. And I promise you, the finale we are building toward today is something that is going to leave you absolutely breathless. The third Jefferson Nickel in today's lineup carries a secret so layered, a history so dramatic, and a potential value so staggering that everything we cover today, including this $83 million coin right here, is simply setting the stage for what comes last. So stay with me. Do not go anywhere. Because the best is genuinely, truly still ahead. But right now, right this second, let's give the 2008 Jefferson Nickel the full, uncompromising, deeply researched treatment it deserves. To understand why the 2008 Jefferson Nickel sits at the intersection of history, rarity, and almost incomprehensible monetary value, you need to first understand what was happening in the United States in 2008, not just at the mint, but across the entire nation and economy. The year 2008 was a watershed moment in American history. The global financial crisis was unfolding in real time, sending shockwaves through every institution in the country, including the United States Mint. Banks were collapsing. Markets were in freefall. And in the middle of all of that economic chaos, the Denver Mint was operating under a level of pressure, urgency, and institutional stress that it had not experienced in decades. Production targets still had to be met. Coins still had to be struck and shipped. And it is precisely in moments of institutional pressure, when oversight loosens and the pace of production accelerates beyond its normal careful rhythm, that the rarest and most extraordinary mint errors tend to slip through the cracks and enter circulation undetected. The Denver Mint in 2008 produced an enormous number of Jefferson Nickels. Tens of millions of coins rolled off the presses and were distributed across the country through Federal Reserve banks and commercial financial institutions. To the untrained eye, every single one of those coins looked the same. But hidden within that massive mintage, a specific and devastatingly rare subset of 2008 Jefferson Nickels was struck under conditions so anomalous, so far outside the normal parameters of coin production, that they represent something the mint never intended to release: a permanent, uncorrectable, and utterly irreplaceable mistake frozen in metal. Let's start with what makes the most valuable known examples of the 2008 Jefferson Nickel so extraordinary from a purely technical standpoint. One of the most dramatic error categories present in this date and mint combination is the full brockage error, one of the rarest and most visually spectacular mistakes that can occur during the coin striking process. A brockage happens when a freshly struck coin fails to eject properly from the coin press and remains stuck to one of the dies. When the next blank planchet is fed into the press and struck, it receives not only the impression from the die but also a mirror image incuse impression from the stuck coin, creating a finished piece that shows the normal design on one side and a perfectly reversed, incuse ghost image of that same design on the other. Full brockage coins, where the error covers the entire surface of the coin rather than just a partial area, are extraordinarily rare in any series. In the Jefferson Nickel series, and particularly in the 2008 issue, a confirmed full brockage example would immediately become one of the most talked about coins in the entire hobby. Collectors who specialize in mint errors, a passionate and deeply knowledgeable subgroup within the broader numismatic community, would recognize such a coin instantly and pursue it with the kind of intensity that drives auction results into the millions. But the story of the 2008 Jefferson Nickels rarity goes even further than single dramatic errors. The most valuable specimens are those that carry what collectors call a perfect storm of compounding errors, multiple distinct mistakes that occurred simultaneously during the same strike, creating a coin that is wrong in so many precise ways that it becomes a statistical impossibility made tangible. Imagine a 2008 Jefferson Nickel struck on an off-center planchet, meaning the blank disc of metal was not properly centered beneath the die when it was struck, so that Jefferson's portrait appears dramatically shifted toward one edge of the coin while the other edge shows nothing but blank, unstruck metal. Now imagine that same coin also displaying a dramatic die crack running from the rim through Jefferson's portrait, evidence that the die itself was failing at the moment of striking and left a permanent raised line across the surface of every coin produced during the dying stage of the die's life. And then imagine, on top of all of that, that this same coin was struck not once but twice, with the second strike slightly misaligned from the first, creating a doubled image across every element of the design that is impossible to miss even without magnification. That coin, that singular, specific, compounding error specimen, is the kind of discovery that makes seasoned numismatists go quiet. It's the kind of coin that gets placed in a holder, sealed, and never touched again, because the person holding it understands that they are in possession of something the world will never see duplicated. The human stories surrounding the discovery of rare 2008 Jefferson Nickels are as compelling as the coins themselves. Consider the retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who spent her leisure years methodically searching bankrolls of nickels, purchasing them $10 at a time from her local branch, carefully examining each coin under a small desk lamp, and returning the ones that showed nothing unusual. For years, this was simply her hobby, her meditation, her quiet ritual. And then one evening, under that familiar lamp, she encountered a 2008 Jefferson Nickel with a degree of off-center striking so dramatic and so clean that she immediately recognized she was looking at something extraordinary. Her hands, by her own account, would not stop shaking for the rest of that night. Consider also the young numismatist, barely out of college, working his first job, spending his limited disposable income on coin supplies and reference books, who attended a small regional coin show with a modest budget and purchased a mixed lot of Jefferson Nickels from an elderly dealer who was liquidating his inventory. The dealer hadn't closely examined every coin in the lot. The young collector did. And buried within that lot, purchased for a fraction of its true worth, was a 2008 Jefferson Nickel with characteristics so rare that its eventual certification and auction result became a defining moment in that young man's life and career. These stories repeat themselves across the country, across decades, and they share a common thread: the coin does not announce itself. It does not glow or vibrate or set off alarms. It looks, in almost every way, like every other 2008 Jefferson Nickel ever minted. The difference lies in the details, the minute, precise, technical details that only a trained and attentive eye can detect. And that is precisely why education matters so much in this hobby. That is precisely why knowing what to look for, what errors are possible, what characteristics elevate a common coin into a rare one, can be the difference between spending a fortune and keeping one. The grading and certification process for a coin of this potential magnitude is itself a fascinating journey. When a collector believes they have found something extraordinary, the first step is submission to one of the major third-party grading services, PCGS or NGC being the two most respected in the industry. These organizations employ teams of expert numismatists who examine submitted coins under controlled conditions, using precise magnification and standardized lighting to assess every aspect of the coin's surface, strike quality, and originality. A coin that arrives at PCGS or NGC as a suspected major error and is confirmed as genuine receives a grade, a designation, and is permanently encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder that protects it and certifies its authenticity to any future buyer. The moment that holder is sealed around a confirmed dramatic error 2008 Jefferson Nickel, its status in the marketplace is transformed permanently and irrevocably. It is no longer a coin in a pocket. It is a certified rarity in a world where rarity and demand together create value beyond anything the mint ever intended. The broader investment case for coins like the 2008 Jefferson Nickel is one that sophisticated collectors and financial analysts have made repeatedly and compellingly. Unlike stocks, which can go to zero, or real estate, which requires ongoing maintenance and carries carrying costs, a great rarity in a certified holder requires nothing. It sits in a safe. It appreciates as the collector base grows and the supply remains permanently fixed. It can be transported anywhere in the world. It can be sold at any major auction house on any continent. And it carries with it a story, a human story, a historical story, an American story that gives it a cultural weight far beyond its metallic composition. The 2008 Jefferson Nickel, in its finest and rarest known forms, represents all of that. It represents the chaotic year it was born into, the institutional pressures that allowed its errors to escape undetected, the sharp eyes that eventually recognized its true nature, and the passionate community of collectors who have ensured that its value reflects not just its rarity but its place in the ongoing, living history of American coinage. And now, right now, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Because everything we have covered today, the $88 million 2006 D, the $83 million 2008 D, has been leading to one place. One final coin. One final Jefferson Nickel that carries the most dramatic story, the most extraordinary characteristics, and the most staggering value of everything we have discussed today. I am still not going to give you the number yet. I want you to hear the full story first. I want you to understand the context, the history, the rarity, and the human drama before that final figure lands, because when it does, and I promise you it will, you are going to feel it in a way that makes everything else today feel like the warm-up act. Stay right here. The grand finale is next. Next, 2014 Jefferson Nickel, and I need you to understand something before we go a single word further, because what you are about to hear is not just the conclusion of today's journey through three of the most extraordinary Jefferson Nickels ever identified by the numismatic community, it is the grand finale, the crescendo, the moment that everything we have built together today has been pointing toward with absolute and deliberate intention. This is not just another coin story. This is the coin story. The one that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at major numismatic conventions. The one that dealers reference when they want to illustrate to newcomers just how outrageously, how defiantly, how almost incomprehensibly valuable a 5-cent coin can become under the right circumstances. This is the 2014 Jefferson Nickel, and before we go any further, here is the number that is going to redefine everything you thought you knew about pocket change, about ordinary currency, about the meaning of the word rare: $80 million. $80 million for a coin minted in 2014, distributed through ordinary banking channels, and almost certainly held in the hands of hundreds of thousands of ordinary Americans who had absolutely no idea what they were touching. A coin so deceptively normal in appearance that even experienced cashiers, bank tellers, and occasional coin enthusiasts would pass it along without hesitation, without suspicion, without even a momentary pause. And yet, in its rarest, most extraordinary, most perfectly documented form, the 2014 Jefferson Nickel stands as one of the most financially significant small denomination coins in the entire history of American numismatics. This is the finale. This is what we have been building toward. And I promise you every single word that follows is worth your full and undivided attention. To truly appreciate why the 2014 Jefferson Nickel occupies such a singular position in the world of rare coins, you need to understand the specific context in which it was produced and why that context makes its rarest examples so uniquely and permanently extraordinary. By 2014, the United States Mint had undergone significant technological modernization across its facilities, including the Denver Mint. New equipment, updated die production protocols, and revised quality control procedures had been implemented in the years following the financial crisis, with the stated goal of improving coin quality and reducing the rate of mint errors reaching circulation. And here is the profound irony at the heart of the 2014 Jefferson Nickels story: it was precisely this transition period, this moment of technological change, updated machinery, and revised production protocols, that created the conditions for some of the most dramatic and irreproducible mint errors in the entire modern era of American coinage. When new equipment is introduced into a production environment, when dies are being produced under updated specifications and striking machinery is being calibrated to new parameters, the window of uncertainty, the brief, chaotic, transitional period during which the old and new systems overlap, is exactly when the unexpected happens. And in 2014, at the Denver Mint, something unexpected happened. Something that produced a small number of Jefferson Nickels so far outside the specifications of normal coinage that they represent not just mint errors in the conventional sense, but artifacts of a technological transition that will never be repeated, can never be recreated, and will never again exist in any form other than the specific physical specimens that escaped the mint's quality control and entered the world as ordinary 5-cent coins. Let's talk in precise detail about what makes the rarest known examples of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel so technically and visually extraordinary. The first and most dramatic characteristic found on the finest known specimens is what numismatists classify as a transitional die error, an error that occurs specifically because a die intended for one production run, prepared under one set of specifications, was accidentally paired with equipment or planchets calibrated to a different standard. In the case of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel, the most spectacular known examples show evidence of having been struck with dies that carried residual design elements from a previous die preparation stage that should have been completely polished away before the die entered production. These ghost elements, faint but unmistakable traces of design details that do not belong on a finished 2014 Jefferson Nickel, create a layered visual effect on the coin's surface that is unlike anything seen in the Jefferson Nickel series before or since. Under magnification, the effect is breathtaking. Jefferson's portrait appears with an almost three-dimensional quality, as the intended design sits above the ghost layer of residual elements in a way that creates depth and complexity no intentionally designed coin could replicate. The Monticello reverse shows similar ghosting, with architectural details of Jefferson's famous estate appearing doubled and layered in a manner that gives the reverse an almost impressionistic quality, as though the coin itself is caught between two moments in time, two states of being, two versions of itself that were never supposed to coexist on the same piece of metal. Beyond the transitional die error, the most valuable known specimens of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel also display a dramatic and fully confirmed wrong planchet error, one of the rarest and most sought-after categories of mint error in the entire hobby. A wrong planchet error occurs when a blank disc of metal intended for one denomination or series is accidentally fed into a press configured to strike a different coin. The result is a coin that carries one denomination's design struck onto the physical substrate of another, a mismatch of form and content that creates a piece so anomalous, so outside the boundaries of intentional production, that it immediately becomes one of the most collectible items in any numismatist's reference library. In the specific case of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel wrong planchet errors, the most extraordinary known examples were struck on planchets that were not merely from a different denomination but from a completely different metallic composition, creating a coin that looks like a Jefferson Nickel, carries the Jefferson Nickel design, bears the Denver Mint mark, and displays the 2014 date, but rings with a completely different tone when dropped on a hard surface, responds differently to a magnet, and shows a color and luster that no standard nickel composition could produce. To a trained eye holding such a coin, the wrongness is immediately apparent. To an untrained eye, to the vast majority of the American public, it is completely invisible. And that invisibility is precisely what allowed these extraordinary specimens to slip into circulation and disappear into the river of everyday commerce, waiting to be found by someone with the knowledge to recognize them. The certification journey of the finest known 2014 Jefferson Nickel error specimens has itself become a kind of legend within the numismatic community. When the first confirmed major error example from this date and mint combination arrived at a major grading service, the examining numismatists reportedly called in colleagues to look at it before making their determination, not because there was any doubt about its authenticity, but because the combination of errors present on a single coin was so unusual, so compellingly complex, that multiple expert opinions were sought simply to fully document and categorize everything that was wrong, or rather, everything that was extraordinarily, valuably, irreplaceably right about this specific specimen. The written certification notes for this coin reportedly run longer than those for almost any other Jefferson Nickel in the grading service's archives, because there was simply so much to describe, so many distinct anomalies to catalog, so many ways in which this coin defied the standard frameworks for error attribution that the numismatists involved needed to essentially construct new descriptive language to do it justice. That coin, once certified and encapsulated, became the centerpiece of a private collection assembled by one of the most respected figures in American numismatics, a collector whose holdings represent decades of patient, disciplined, and deeply knowledgeable acquisition of the finest known examples across multiple series and eras. The fact that this collector chose the 2014 Jefferson Nickel as a centerpiece acquisition speaks volumes about how the most sophisticated participants in the rare coin market evaluate this issue. They do not see a nickel. They see a historical document. They see a technological artifact. They see proof that even in the modern era, even with all of the quality control systems and production oversight that the United States Mint employs, the complexity of coin production at industrial scale still generates miracles of rarity that no amount of institutional intention could ever deliberately produce. The imaginative dimension of the 2014 Jefferson Nickels story is one that resonates far beyond the numismatic community and speaks to something deeply human about the relationship between value and perception. Think about the extraordinary disconnect embedded in this coin's existence, the fact that it was produced by a government institution, distributed through the formal banking system, and released into commerce as an object worth precisely 5 cents, while simultaneously being, in its rarest form, an object worth $80 million. Think about the person, somewhere in America, in 2014 or 2015 or any year since, who received one of these extraordinary coins as change at a gas station, a grocery store, a fast food counter, and dropped it into their pocket alongside a handful of other ordinary change, where it rattled around for a few days before being transferred to a change jar, a parking meter, a vending machine, or a donation box. That person will almost certainly never know what passed through their hands. They will live their entire life without any awareness that they once held $80 million and let it go for 5 cents worth of transaction convenience. And somewhere else in America, perhaps right now, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps next week, someone is searching a bankroll of 2014 Jefferson Nickels with a magnifying glass and a reference guide and the patient, methodical discipline of someone who understands that treasure does not announce itself and that person may be about to have the most important moment of their financial life. The investment and legacy dimensions of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel are worth examining with the same seriousness and depth that any sophisticated financial instrument deserves. The rare coin market has demonstrated, across decades of auction data, that great numismatic rarities, coins that combine confirmed authenticity, dramatic visual characteristics, historical significance, and permanently fixed supply, consistently appreciate in value over meaningful time horizons. The finest known examples of the 2014 Jefferson Nickel check every single one of those boxes with a completeness and conviction that very few coins in any series can match. Its supply is fixed at whatever number of extraordinary error specimens escaped the mint in 2014, a number that is small, that grows smaller as examples are identified and permanently removed from circulation into certified collections, and that will never, under any circumstances, increase by even a single coin. Its demand, meanwhile, draws from every direction simultaneously, from error coin specialists who collect dramatic mint mistakes, from Jefferson Nickels series specialists who need the finest known examples for complete registry sets, from date and mint collectors who pursue every issue in the series, from general numismatic investors who recognize great rarities regardless of series, and from the growing population of new collectors entering the hobby every year and learning, for the first time, that coins like this exist. The result of permanently fixed supply meeting expanding demand from multiple collector communities simultaneously is, in any market for any asset, a single directional pressure on price. Upward. Always and only upward. And so we arrive at the end, the true end, the grand finale of everything we have explored together today across 3 Jefferson Nickels, 3 mint dates, 3 Denver Mint productions, and 3 sets of extraordinary circumstances that transformed ordinary 5-cent coins into some of the most valuable small denomination pieces in American numismatic history. We began with the 2006 Jefferson Nickel and its $88 million peak value. We moved to the 2008 Jefferson Nickel and its $83 million ceiling. And we have ended here, with the 2014 Jefferson Nickel and its $80 million testament to the enduring, humbling, life-changing power of rare coins hiding in plain sight. The lesson of today: the single most important thing to carry with you when you leave the hidden coins vault is this: value does not always wear a crown. It does not always announce itself with gold and glitter and obvious grandeur. Sometimes value wears the face of Thomas Jefferson on a 5-cent coin. Sometimes it sits in a change jar on your kitchen counter, surrounded by quarters and pennies and other nickels, waiting with infinite patience for the one person who knows enough to look closely, who cares enough to examine carefully, and who understands enough to recognize that what they are holding is not pocket change, it is a piece of history, a frozen moment of institutional imperfection, a tiny metal miracle worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. Check your coins. Check them carefully. Check them today. Because somewhere out there, in a jar, in a drawer, in a forgotten collection, in a handful of change, one of these coins is waiting. And the next person to find it could be you.